Hey Thrivers, you're listening to episode 52. Today we are talking about creating healthy habits with Holly Mann, the owner of Fresh Habits in Lancaster, PA. Holly will be sharing how mindset is so important when it comes to prioritizing our health, wellness, and financial decisions. She is a life success coach with years of experience in fitness and nutrition, and we cannot wait to ask her our questions. Not only does Holly offer coaching services, she and her husband run Fresh Habits Cuisine, a weekly meal delivery service that prepares fresh meals for busy families, and all meals are dairy and gluten-free. Holly is a mom of 2 girls and has a few more years of experience than Christine and I, so get ready for an episode that's full of life advice, tips for creating healthier habits, and meal prep answers from a pro.
Welcome to The Thrive, a podcast for working moms. This is for all the women and moms listening. If you work from home, in an office, run your own business, or are the CEO of your family, this podcast is for you. Because at the end of the day, all moms are working moms. Rachel and Christine invite you to celebrate the victories, get advice, listen to their mom fails, and to know you aren't alone, to thrive in your everyday life.
Hey Thrivers, it's Rachel
and Christine.
We're super excited to have with us today a guest who is new to the podcast, and she's a guest that neither of us have met or connected with yet, but we sought her out because she is a little bit of an expert when it comes to not just health and nutrition, but financial success. And we want to introduce today Holly Mann.
Hi there. Thanks for having me.
Holly, thank you so much for joining. Like Rachel said, we haven't gotten to meet yet, so it's such a pleasure to have you join our show.
My pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Yep. Awesome. Holly is the owner of Fresh Habits, and she is a personal success coach. So tell us a little bit about what that is, and tell us how you got here. Because I know when we spoke on the phone, you walked me through a little bit of your career journey, but bring our listeners up to speed.
So I have a background in personal training and group fitness, and that's where it all started about 5 years ago when I was working at a local CrossFit gym. And I eventually started branching out into small group training, personal training, nutrition counseling. And I quickly learned that I really loved more the personal interaction that came from working one-on-one or in small groups. I was really interested in talking to people about all the things in life outside of the gym that were challenges for them in living a healthy lifestyle. So as some things transitioned, I decided to move on my own. And what I found was most people know how to eat healthy, know they should go to the gym, know they should manage their stress. But the reality was when you're changing your habits and your routines, there's a lot of support that's needed during that time. So I specialize in accountability coaching, which offers that layer of support while people are shifting routines, shifting patterns, upgrading their habits and standards for themselves. And I have a lot of personal connection with them in that process so that they can ultimately find long-term success that's sustainable.
That's awesome. That sounds like something I need.
We all do.
Accountability. Side note, so you did CrossFit. I tried that once. Did you enjoy CrossFit?
I did. Like I said, I was a CrossFit coach for 5 years. So I really embraced that style of movement for a long time. It really suited me. I got into the best shape of my life, not just because of the workouts, but I also dialed in my nutrition at that point, which is really key. Most people use their workout as a way to take care of a poor nutrition lifestyle. And the reality is, as I began to evolve and expand and build a business and be more engaged with my kids as they got older, I just needed to shift into a different style of working out. So I'm a little less intense these days, but it was a really great part of my life and a great community that I found.
So are you saying when you made the comment about the fitness to like make up for the nutrition, what you're saying is I shouldn't go work out so that I can have a donut?
Yeah,
like maybe I should just cut the donuts.
Well, it's about balance for sure. It's about, I guide people to get back to the basics of eating. I think, especially in the CrossFit world, you will hear a lot of conversation around strict diets, the Whole30, paleo, keto. And I personally want people to come back to the basics of eating real food. Not too much of it, and tons of veggies. And it's something that when you dial in the nutrition, your body composition will naturally find its way to the right body composition for you.
Yeah.
And so many people use their workouts just sort of as like helping them offset that, and they never really find the results they deserve to have.
Yeah.
So I've seen that frustration for years in the gym setting where people come, they're doing the workouts, or where they're working out really hard, but they haven't paid attention to the nutrition, and they're just not finding the complete success they could.
Yeah, I get that. And I know I need to do better with my nutrition. I have just always had that mindset because I played volleyball my whole life and through college, and it was very intense CrossFit type of training, because in volleyball you're doing a lot of jumping, a lot of real quick movement, a lot of different reps, and then you take a break.
Yeah.
What is that? Like anaerobic exercise.
Yeah.
Very similar. And like we had off-season weight training, and I think just because of how intense it was and how my metabolism was at the time, definitely a difference from 20 to 30.
Absolutely.
It's easy to get into that mindset when at some point in your life you are able to do that. And then I think once you get a little older, especially once you have kids, like your body changes. So you were mentioning you help people create new habits.
Yes. And we were just chatting about this before the recording. Things change in life, especially as women, especially as mothers. When you're pre-children, life is a certain way. You might have certain habits and routines that work for you. Having newborns versus preschoolers versus middle school kids, I've learned that I have to continuously upgrade and revisit what I'm doing, when I'm doing it. How much time do I have for a workout? How much time do I have to prepare my meals? And I got to say, as my kids got older, I totally thought I'd have all this free time, because when they were little, it was really hard. And the reality is my kids have their own little schedules now that I am responsible to get them to. And it's a challenge still, just in a different way. So I'm learning to continuously check in with myself. What's going well? What's not going well? What do I need to let go of? What do I need to add in? And that's just kind of keeping up with life.
Can you share, you mentioned that you have some kids, and kids who are a little older than Rachel and my kids. Can you tell us a little bit more about your family?
Absolutely. So I was born and raised in a small town not too far from here. I grew up in Parksburg, Pennsylvania, and that's where I met my husband. We will be married 19 years next month, and we met in high school. So I've known this fellow for a long time. We have two children, Rachel, who is going to be 13. So I'm going to be entering the teen years as a mother.
Wow.
And Carla is 10. So we have our small family. We live in Willow Street. And that's about my family.
I just wanted to ask you, because you have two girls and you obviously value like nutrition and with CrossFit. I don't know if that's something you came into later or if you've always been athletic and always enjoyed sports. But I was just wondering if that's something that's always been part of your life. Are your girls getting into that now, or are they just like, you just encourage them to do whatever they want to do?
Yeah. So, I mean, sports were different when I was a kid. I mean, we didn't get into year-round like club sports, and we didn't start at the age of 5. So I experimented with field hockey, and that was really it. Yoga. I've gone back and forth with being overweight, having an unhealthy relationship with food, really just exploring all of that, because I wasn't really an athlete, but I was active, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I started CrossFit when I was probably 35.
Oh, man.
And that was the first time I really worked out with weights or in a gym. So that was a huge, huge shift for me to step out of my comfort zone and try that. I find with kids, it's most important for me to talk to them about being active and lifestyle more so than working out and training. So I encourage my kids to be active, to be mindful of what they eat. My kids eat junk, they eat pizza and desserts, but my kids eat a ton of vegetables as well. They've just sort of picked up on the fact that it's about balance. And if you eat a certain way every day, or most days, you can really indulge in whatever it is you want to enjoy, and it's not a problem. Obviously, raising girls, I'm very sensitive to what they hear women talking about with nutrition, body composition, the way they look. And I just always bring it back to, how do you feel? Let's get moving. Let's take a break from, being sedentary or looking at screens, and just trying to make it balanced for them.
So I'm hearing you share so much of how our minds affect, obviously, our bodies and our habits. And I know that you've had a little bit, or are experiencing a little bit of a shift in your business to what your focus is, but it's still really keeping in mind our mindset. Has that always been something that you have leaned towards, about being really in tune to your thoughts, or where did that come from?
Well, I would say that I've been in my mind a lot in my life. And honestly, I was always a quite emotional, maybe overly emotional person who definitely struggled with thinking a lot, with anxiety, with worry. And so I really just thought everybody was like that. And I kind of knew everybody wasn't like that, but I was just, couldn't get out of my own thoughts. And I was just always fascinated at the power of our thoughts, because it was really holding me kind of stuck in this non-enjoyable way, because I was just kind of repetitively thinking things of worry or concern. And so when I started to really dive into mindset and the power of our thoughts, and basically our thought patterns are simply habitual ways of thinking, just like our behavior patterns are habitual ways of behaving. Most people don't necessarily look at their thought patterns as much as they do their behavior patterns.
Yeah.
So once I learned how to, I would say, retrain myself and speak to myself in a certain way, I realized that I could produce different results and kind of have a little more, I don't want to say control, but I felt empowered, because I felt like I had the choice to be able to use my mind in whichever way I wanted to. That was beneficial, as opposed to filled with worry, concern, anxiety-ridden thoughts, things like that.
That's awesome. Did you have a coach of your own that helped you get to that point? Was there a podcast or a book or something that just inspired you and kind of walked you through that?
So rewind 12 years, 13 years ago, when I was pregnant with my first child, I found myself on bed rest at 24 weeks. And I was highly concerned about that situation. I was just very worried that I was just going to be anxiety ridden for the rest of my bed rest. I was obviously worried about my pregnancy. And I decided to start reading. I was like, well, I better fill my mind with something other than just watching TV and laying here. And that is when I first picked up the book, The Secret by Rhonda Byrne. And it was basically about the law of attraction, power of thoughts, the energetic component of thinking. And it really just kind of started my personal interest in learning more. So I would say the first 10 years, I really just explored books. I was reading, I was seeking out podcasts, I was seeking out other people who wanted more, expected more from themselves. And so that's kind of how I handled the first 10 years. Recently, as I started shifting into my own business, that's when I did first invest in a personal coach for myself. And that's when things really started to shift quickly for me.
Yeah, that is definitely powerful. And I feel like that speaks to something our guest last week had to say. Totally different field. Nicole Vasquez is the owner of a boutique downtown, but she's been really successful with that. And she talked about how it's just so important to surround yourself with people you can learn from. She made the comment that she, I think, quote, wants to be like the dumbest person in the room and wants to just take in what other people have to offer, what other people have to say, people that have been there, done that. And I feel like that's so true, whether it's changing your mindset and putting yourself around people who are in a really healthy place. Like, how did you get there? How did you do that? There's a lot to be said for doing that. So that's really cool.
Absolutely. I would say I've always had a desire to live the best life I could. I just didn't always know how to go about doing that, especially transitioning through motherhood. I at first thought it was through nutrition and fitness. And that was wonderful and great building blocks. But as I went through the years and really started to dive into the mindset piece, I realized it really will always come down to your worthiness of yourself and your sense of, do you deserve to experience certain things in life? And that was a huge eye-opener for me, to kind of go into that internal, like, how am I really feeling about my deservingness or worthiness in these areas to succeed and live a successful life.
Has your husband always been on the same track with you? Because I feel like as women, a lot of us can relate to you really well. Has he been a similar thinker or just kind of along with you for the ride?
Well, like I said, we've pretty much grown up together at this point. Yeah. I met him when I was 15. And
that's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, we've always been very connected. We've always, but not identical, and definitely not like, on this exact same path, but he's always wanted to live a great life, live his best self. He wants to be an amazing father. He wants to stay in shape. He wants to be a supportive husband. And he just wants all the things too. I mean, I have a lot of priorities in life. I expect the best of life, and he does too. So when it comes to mindset and nutrition and all of that, he's always willing to listen. I try not to coach him because he's my husband, but I can't help it. This is kind of my passion, just bleeding into my everyday life. And you're going to get a little coaching from me unintentionally if we're hanging out. So
yeah. Oh, I'm sure.
But the teacher in me tells you it's okay if that bleeds over into your personal life.
I call that work-life integration, not work-life balance. So
I like that.
I now feel like what I do is just part of my life. I mean, I've been trying to figure out my own life for the last 12 years. So it's a natural conversation for me to have with other people that are just embarking on it or just not satisfied or expecting more.
So can you tell me how the mindset stuff, how the nutritional stuff has led you to the financial part of your business?
Yes.
And just the knowledge you have around that.
Absolutely. So like I said, I was an employee for a gym. We transitioned as the gym sold, and I decided I've always wanted to build a career around my family. I've kind of always clung to this story that if I was going to be a great mom who was available to her children, I wasn't really going to have a financially rewarding career because I wasn't willing to commit everything to that. And so as I transitioned on from being an employee, I wanted to develop my own company. That's where Fresh Habits came from. And I realized quickly that if I wanted to be financially successful and I wanted to build this amazing company, that I needed to get my own relationship with money in order. And I needed to really address some of my blocks with money, my lack of confidence, my maybe little bit of guilt or shame that surrounded wanting to make a lot of money, and being comfortable charging for my services. And I just noticed that was a thing that I didn't realize was a thing until I started exploring it.
That's really true. I remember it was something I didn't give much thought to, but as a business owner, raising my prices, it was anxiety for days. And then I had anxiety when I would send out my new pricing. Yeah. Oh my gosh, what if they don't want to pay it? And at the end of the day, it's that's what my time and my experience and skills are worth. And it does have a lot to do with worth. Yes. And I like that you brought that up. Can you expand on that a little bit? I don't know, from a coaching perspective, what is that to somebody that maybe doesn't have a business, but knowing that they are worthy of,
Well, it shows up for women all the time, whether they're business owners or not. I've been there and I see so many people, young, middle-aged, and older, that don't feel they deserve to take a nap or go spend money on something for themselves, or they're so in that giving state and being there for others, their spouse or their children, their homes, maybe their aging parents, their career. It's just one of those things that I feel like there's a lot of guilt and shame around wanting certain things for ourselves. And for me personally, I think, I grew up in a conservative home in an environment that we weren't broke, but money wasn't always available for all the things. And I'm just learning how to trust and teach myself that it's okay to want to have a wildly successful career financially. It's okay to put time aside, have my children go somewhere while I focus on something that matters to me, like building a business or taking time to read and educate myself. And I had to literally train myself to get to the point where I truly felt like it was okay and I deserved and I was worthy of taking some time for myself. So when I wanted to build this business, I saw the money blocks I had. I saw the uncomfortableness I had with even charging anything for my time, let alone rates that were in line with the services I was offering. So that's when I hired my first coach, Nicole Sylvester. I invested in an abundance mindset course, and that was about 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago. And from there, everything has shifted, and I'm constantly coming back to that inner work of the worthiness. How is it that I feel about deserving to charge this amount, that amount? And yeah, that's kind of, everything I teach other people is stuff I've learned in my own life. It's just, I'm trying to figure out how to do this. And then I realized what I came up against. I found some solutions, and I want to share that with other people who are just kind of staying limited or stuck in their own perspectives.
I hope that even our listeners, as they're hearing you speak of that, things are coming to their mind that maybe they didn't even realize they need permission for, or the go ahead. You ladies talked about pricing in your business, but I even know sometimes Rachel and I talk about like, oh, I don't feel like I can fit this into my schedule. And I kind of say, it's okay, Rachel, to say no. And like we give each other that permission. But as women, there are all these areas where it may boil down to we don't think we're worth it, or we put our other people ahead of ourselves. At what cost? So I love that you're there alongside women to not only say it's okay, but encourage them to whatever that end result is.
Well, the reality is, if you're not doing things in life to care for yourself, whether it's through basics of nutrition, sleep, exercise, you are not showing up as your best self. And the people around you, you may think you're giving them their best, but if there's an undercurrent or a tone of resentment or frustration or what about me, you really are doing yourself and them a disservice. So as soon as I started to become very clear on what mattered most to me in life, and then I looked at the time frame I had available to accomplish things in these areas, I had to really pull together a puzzle for myself that worked within the ages that my kids were, and learn that I can't spend an hour at the gym right now. I can't travel 20 minutes there, 20 minutes home. I got to figure something else out. That happened with my nutrition, with my meal prep. Everything had to be super efficient. I knew that these things mattered to me, and I knew that it was the lifestyle I wanted. Now I was working on knowing I deserved to have these things. And I feel unstoppable, and I feel like such a better mother. I am so much more attentive to my husband and his needs, and it's just a win-win for everybody.
Absolutely. That's so important. And I feel like I've been in a process of that myself lately, of being able to say yes and no to things. And you mentioned a few times, Holly, how when your family dynamics change and your kids get older or new activities come into play, then it's always a good time and pause to say, well, what does that look like for me now? I'm the mom. A lot of times we're the ones organizing all the things. What does that look like so that we're still putting ourselves as a priority?
Absolutely. And I've really learned as I've gotten older. I mean, I'm in my mid-40s at this point, and things change there too. Like in your 20s and 30s, you're not as confident perhaps as you will be as you have more life experiences. But
I love hearing that.
It really, I feel like just so relieved. I wish I had the confidence and the clarity I have now in my 20s because, I might have made some different choices.
Simon, you don't look mid-40s at all.
Well, thank you. That's the sleep and the nutrition there. But the reality is, I forget what we were even just talking about.
Basically how all your choices are making your skin look so healthy.
Yeah, I'm sorry I interrupted because I was like mid-40s.
No.
I got stuck on that. Because you look fabulous. And I mean that, like, you just look healthy and fit. And I love hearing from women that are older than me or more experienced as a mom that, like, not necessarily it gets better, but like you'll feel better.
Yeah.
Like there's a confidence that comes with doing it longer. And that's awesome. And I feel like I need to make a disclaimer that as you've been talking about family adjustments and kids changing and making these adjustments, these babies of ours used to be quiet as a church mouse and sleep through every episode. And I have a baby right now that has been trying to crawl, which is why every time I put him down, you guys probably hear him complaining. He's not upset, but he just wants to go.
Well, I love watching you guys feed your babies and hold your babies and have a meaningful, inspiring conversation for your listeners, because honestly, elevating our conversations is the easiest way to upgrade your life. It's like, what are we talking about? What information are we exchanging? Are we just complaining? Are we just venting? Or are we actively supporting each other to learn how to just tweak what you're doing and make time for the things that matter? And that's the number one thing I can recommend is you got to get clear on what matters to you. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't, the world will pull you in a number of directions that will leave you tired and without the time for the things that matter to you. So that's one piece of advice.
That I'm actually just writing all that down. That's what I'm doing over here.
While holding the baby.
Yeah. I feel like that is a perfect place to take a break, Holly, because what matters? Maybe Robbie needs to get up and move for a second. So thank you for sharing all that about mindset. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about the healthy eating, meal prep, and some tips that you have for all of our listeners.
Perfect. Sounds great. Thank you.
Hey mamas, it's time for our review of the week. JSK said, laugh, cry, and relate. These mamas have the total package. I feel like I'm sitting beside them drinking some wine. I totally understand and relate to their life experiences, and I learn a lot too. Smiling emoji. Well, we are so glad that you can learn something from the show, that you might have had a good laugh, and if you got to drink a glass of wine in peace or a cup of coffee without anyone needing you, anyone bothering you, or shouting your name from the bathroom to come wipe them, then you are doing amazing. Welcome back, Thrivers. We're talking with Holly Mann, the owner of Fresh Habits, and she's going to be sharing with us some ways in this second part of our episode here, some ways to create fresh habits of your own, whether that's with nutrition or with fitness or with your finances. So we talked in the first part of this episode about Holly's coaching business, and I know that nutrition is a big part of that, but I also just learned you do meal prep. Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. So I've done a lot of accountability coaching with nutrition clients, people that are trying to shift their patterns and habits within nutrition and find the time in their schedules for it. So one thing I kept hearing over and over again was, I would eat this way forever. I love healthy food. I just need somebody to cook it for me. I need somebody to prepare it and provide it to me because I just don't have the time. And after hearing that from many people for several months, I finally asked my husband if he'd be willing to cook for some of my private clients. And it kind of sounded crazy, honestly, but he did. He's an amazing chef. And we started Fresh Habits Cuisine, which is basically we get people to pre-order meals. They customize the meals they want. We have a rotating menu each week that offers 4 proteins, vegetables, and starches. We cook real food. We eliminate grain, dairy, and flour. And so we're cooking from scratch healthy meals, and people put their order in. They look at their calendar for the upcoming week, decide how many meals they want that week. And we spend the day in the kitchen on Mondays together, he and I, which is Been very interesting, but it's going well. And then we deliver meals to people's homes, or there's drop-off spots throughout Lancaster that we're trying to find more of those, actually. And people then are set up with healthy, balanced meals that are delicious, full of flavor, but really there to support them in their nutrition journey.
That is so cool. How do I sign up? Where do people go to sign up if they're interested?
So we're in the process of establishing an online ordering system, but that's still in the works. So for now, you simply send an email to orders@freshhabits.net. And my assistant, Natalie, handles all of the details. So she'll send you the weekly menu. She'll get all the information you need, invoice, and you'll just get on the list. And hopefully soon, in the next couple months, you'll be able to actually go onto my website, freshhabits.net, and just place your order there.
That's so cool. I just brought a meal to a friend the other day because she just had a baby. In this stage of life, I'm invited to a lot of different meal trains. Meal Train's an actual app. If you've never heard of it, it's an app you can, just like a GoFundMe, you can set it up for somebody that maybe has an illness, or in my case, most of them are because people have just had babies, and you can sign up to bring them a meal. And in the sign up, there's usually like a section that says are there any allergies or restrictions? And a lot of moms, I've noticed over the past few years that I've been bringing meals to my friends and people in this stage of life, I know a handful of friends who have had dairy issues.
Whether nursing.
Yes, their babies, because they've been breastfeeding, sometimes their babies are having issues with dairy, and so they have to cut it out. So is this something that if you just wanted to order a meal for a friend, you could sign up and get one meal or 2 meals for their family? Because I feel like this would be a really cool option for somebody like myself that doesn't cook very much, but wants to bring somebody a home-cooked meal. But also, I love that you don't do the dairy and the gluten, because that is an issue for a lot of people.
Yeah. We've actually done that quite a bit already, where there's a lot of stress that comes with cooking for another family, making sure they like it and just not knowing what to make. And there's nothing more important to me than having nutritious food after having a baby or when you're in a time of need. We typically offer individual trays. That's how a lot of people order food. There's going to be a protein, a vegetable, and a starch in each tray. But we do deliver family style as well for situations like that. So we do know of several families in need right now, or going through some transitions that are tough, or babies. And it's a wonderful gift to give somebody when you don't know what to do to help. You can always offer food. Most people, that's the first thing to go. Is cooking food when they're, in something like that, a transition like that. So absolutely, there's never any minimum or requirement to order every single week. It's just order when you want. Let us support you. Let us we do all of the menu planning, the grocery shopping, the chopping, the cleanup, the cooking. When you get our food, all you do is eat it. So that's one of the nice, unique things about our meals.
I mean, that sounds amazing to me. And I love being able to take something to somebody, because my love language is gifts, but I don't cook.
Yeah.
So that would be a huge help.
Absolutely. And we've just recently expanded. We have, like I mentioned, the 3 compartment trays. We also offer a lighter version, which is just vegetables and proteins. We've just expanded into a vegetarian dish, and we do homemade soups and bone broth. So tons of ways to support somebody with different options of nutritious foods.
That sounds really, really cool. So can you give our listeners some tips if they're meal prepping at home on their own?
Absolutely.
Because that is a very big part of eating healthier, is being prepared.
Yes. This is one of the things I have a lot of conversation with my nutrition clients who don't purchase food from us. They do want to do it on their own. They enjoy cooking, but they're just having trouble fitting it all in. I would say my number one recommendation would be to get very familiar and comfortable with batch cooking. That is something that I've learned I've had to do now that my children are doing evening sports. That's never been in our household before this past year or so. And so what that is on the weekends, we simply look at proteins, vegetables, and different starches that we can make in abundance at one time. If we're going to spend time in the kitchen, we're going to make a bunch of meatballs, we're going to grill a bunch of chicken. We will not make up individual plates for ourselves. We'll just have a container of the meatballs, a container of the chicken, a container of the roasted broccoli, container of the roasted sweet potatoes. And so everything's pretty much done in bulk. And then throughout the week, people can grab a plate and pick the combination they want. It's made, it's there. Yes, it's leftovers, but it's better than grilled cheese or cereal or, you know the choices we make when we're short on time and we have to get somewhere.
Yeah, and I love leftovers.
Yeah, I just feel like if you're going to spend time cooking, always make more than you need for that one meal, because then there's something waiting for you for lunch or for another meal later in the week. And I used to cook every day. I never thought about that. I never thought like just double the recipe and make a meal for later. So I always think of things that can be frozen, meatballs, crock pot dishes, things that make it easy to cook in bulk. And then you're set up for the week a little more successfully.
That's awesome. How does that impact to your grocery budget? If you're meal prepping, do you find that it's easier to stay on a budget? I mean, I imagine it probably is. But is that something that with your financial coaching, like how does that tie in?
So I've had a whole love-hate relationship with my grocery bill because it is expensive to eat. We have a family of 4 and my children eat a lot of food for kids. Because we do a lot of prepping and because our nutrition is important to us, we have made the conscious decision to spend more on our grocery bill than our eating out bills. So we do, if you look at 3 meals a day, 7 days a week, there's 21 meals in a week, realistically, if you're eating 3 meals a day. Mm-hmm. To get the cost of what you're spending, I mean, I really view food as fuel and food as medicine. So I do my best to make the plan for the week. I adjust throughout the week if I need to. Certain meals will get pushed to different days. But the reality is my grocery budget stays much more in line now that I'm deliberate and I'm throwing out very little at the end of the week. I know how to use my more perishable things sooner in the week. Mm-hmm. And you just get into like a system and a rhythm of looking at your food. And once you find success in being able to eat well, food that you enjoy amongst a busy schedule, you're more inclined to put the time into, sitting down and planning your week and getting that grocery list dialed in. Another thing I will say that some of my clients do, I don't personally do this, but in terms of keeping on a budget, a lot of people will pre-order their groceries online, so they're not making decisions as they're tempted, going down the aisles and picking up some extras that maybe they don't need, but look good in the moment. Yeah. So that's a way some of my clients have said they've really stuck to a budget nicely. So I think that's a great thing to consider.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. I did Instacart a bunch of times when I was pregnant because it was just so hard to get out and get all those big things. Yeah. Especially like at Costco. So for like the paper towels and the toilet paper, I was like, I can't even physically carry all these things. And it was nice doing it online because it's true, especially at a place like that where they tempt you with all those samples. Yes. I have like a big bag, a Costco-sized bag of chocolate-covered pretzels in my cupboard right now. And they will last me. Like, that is the one thing, like, I'll treat myself to, like, chocolate-covered pretzels or, like, the bark thins is my other guilty pleasure. And I'll just have, like, a little piece when I need something sweet. But they were not on my list. I was not planning to get them. And they were sampling them, and I was like, oh, these are so good, and they're on sale.
It's a definite good business strategy.
I know. But ordering online does help. I will share, I have learned Instacart prices are not the same, though.
Yeah.
So
you have to be careful, for sure. There's a balance there. But paying attention is number one. Having a plan and paying attention is the first thing to do.
Yeah.
You think about what your week looks like. Don't plan on cooking 5 nights a week if nobody's home those 5 nights. Like it really comes down to like the reality of what your schedule looks like.
Mm-hmm. That's really true. So I wanted to ask if you have a favorite thing, because that's something that we share in almost every episode. And is there something that you would like to share with our listeners this week, whether it's a favorite thing that has to do with your business, whether it has nothing to do with it at all, and it's like a pair of fuzzy slippers you bought? Tell us a little bit about something that you're into this week or this month.
So I have a lot of things I'm interested in, I'll say. That's a hard one to pick a favorite, but I gotta say my mind immediately went to my books that I'm reading. I've found a new love for reading as my kids have gotten older, and I've found some time in my life to read. And my book right now is directly related to my business and to my lifestyle in general, and that is A Happy Pocket Full of Money.
I was hoping you were going to say that because I wanted to ask you about it.
Yes. So this book was introduced to me a while ago from my coach that I hired, Nicole, and it really helped me dive into my relationship with money, my relationship with all things abundance, success, prosperity. And to me, abundance and wealth is definitely not just money. It's, a healthy lifestyle. It's healthy relationships. It's experiences in the world. It's being able to do what I want to do generally without a lot of stress. So, that book has been changing my life. I am actively recommending it to everybody. I have purchased many of them and just mailed them to friends because I believe everybody should understand wealth consciousness and their relationship with exchanging money in the world. And I think that is my favorite thing right now.
Oh, that's so cool. You are the second person. I think Rhonda, who is my business coach currently, Rhonda Hostetter, I believe she is the first person to mention the book to me, and she brought it up because you had introduced it to her.
Yes.
So I have that on my list, and what's funny is that I had actually jotted down, Christine would be proud, she couldn't join us for the second part of this episode because she had another commitment, but she would be proud that I was prepared ahead of time with the favorite thing, because I always joke that I'm the person that is just like finding something in the room, like I'll see something, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's my favorite thing this week. It's so sad. I'll be like, oh, these shoes I'm wearing.
Yeah, I'm not really into the clothes I wear, and I don't shop a lot. So, it doesn't surprise me that the first thing that came to my mind was a book.
Well, mine happens to be a book as well, and I might have mentioned this book before, but I've just got to say, Girl, Wash Your Face. And Rachel Hollis in general, I've been listening to her podcast since reading the book. I just love it. And I feel like it's because of that whole mindset of like wanting to listen to somebody and read something from somebody who has more experience than me as a mom and as a business person. And she's just really fun. I like that she, even on her podcast, like she's just real. I don't know her as a person, but she's super relatable. I feel like I've learned a lot of just useful things, and her book made me laugh, but it also was really interesting. Like, it has so many good points. She talks about mom guilt. She talks a lot about these lies we tell ourselves. In fact, the whole book is kind of set up like that. It's like, the myth and then how she worked through it. And I love that she's like, these things might not work for you, but at the end of each chapter, she's like, these are things that I did to get through that.
Absolutely. And I think that when it comes down to it, most women are challenged with very similar challenges. And we all seem to think that everybody else has it figured out. We all seem to think everybody else is more organized or more this or that. And the reality is we're all just trying to figure it out. And when you can find somebody who's a little further along in the journey and just has some really good tips or strategies, or makes you realize like, it's okay that it's crazy right now. Stop apologizing, stop feeling guilty, have some fun with it, know you're doing your best, and being an engaged human being that has a lot of things that matter to them and children and the desire to run a business, things are going to be crazy.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And when I see women like doing things, building businesses while they have a baby on their hip, or they are building a business in their garage and they don't really have anything other than a cell phone and a Wi-Fi connection, and they're doing big things, like that is the luxury of like where we like the time frame we live in right now. Is you can build a business with like here in your garage, in your basement, with your kids at home.
So true. Well, I just love everything that you shared this morning. Honestly, I just I have so many more conversations that I want to have with you, and I really think our listeners are going to take so much away from this. And I would love to remind them, where can they find you if you want to order a meal, if you want to schedule a coaching session, or just want to learn more about what Holly does or what she offers?
Absolutely. So on Facebook, I have my personal page, Holly Mann, which often has a lot of my business stuff on it because it's really my life that I'm sharing and encouraging people with. And also my business page, Fresh Habits. Instagram under Holly Mann. And you can always get on the menu list by emailing orders@freshhabits.net. And you'll get on that list so that you can order anytime you'd like. And I did want to offer just something for the listeners, if that's okay.
Yeah, totally.
I would love to offer for all listeners, anybody that's interested in trying the food, 20% off their first order. So it can be an unlimited amount of meals you order in that first time. And if you're local to Lancaster, that's a great way to try the food and connect with maybe simplifying your life in that area if that's important to you.
That's so cool. So how would they take advantage of that? When they email, just mention Thrive Podcast?
Yep, just mention Thrive, and that'll be the key to know you were one of the listeners and eligible for the discount.
That is so cool. Thank you so much for doing that. I mean, can I take advantage of it?
Absolutely. Seriously. I mean, there's nothing more important to me right now than helping people simplify their life and helping them elevate their health and their wellness. And if there's support that I can offer, whether it's through my coaching, through the food we supply, that's just my mission right now, is to help people simplify what's become complicated and take some of that burden away.
That is so cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Listeners, be sure to follow Holly. She is just a wealth of knowledge, and I love that you just share it and lay it out so simply and clearly. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Mamas, if no one has told you yet today, you're doing amazing.
Thank you so much for listening today. You are a part of a growing community of moms, business owners, and women who are here to encourage and inspire. You can connect with Rachel at Rachel Klein Creative on Instagram or rachelkleincreative.com. To keep up with Christine and her latest events, follow her business journey on Instagram at Bellenberry Co. And if you want to be first to know about upcoming guests and giveaways, sign up for the Thrive Podcast email list today. Simply visit rachelkleincreative.com/The Thrive Podcast or follow @The Thrive Podcast on Instagram. If you've enjoyed listening this week or you've already added our show to your favorites playlist, we'd love for you to write us a review on iTunes. Your support and positive feedback allows us to keep encouraging moms and business owners each week.